I'm going to go over a strategy that you can use to manage the fear of embarrassment as an athlete. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, mental performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Have you ever experienced the fear of embarrassment when you're playing? This is going to be a subset of a mental game challenge known as the fear of failure. You're afraid of making mistakes. Specifically, when you're dealing with the fear of embarrassment, you are afraid of making mistakes due to the embarrassment that you're going to feel if you do make the mistakes. An example that I can give is from a college basketball player I worked with who was dealing with a lot of fear of failure and a lot of performance anxiety during games. The number one reason he was experiencing this was due to the fear of embarrassment. All he could think about was how embarrassed he was going to feel if he made mistakes. Embarrassed for himself, embarrassed because he was thinking about who was watching, his family was watching, and that embarrassment drastically changed the way that he played. Or I really should say the fear of that embarrassment drastically affected the way that he played. And that's an interesting point right there. When you experience this fear of embarrassment, for the most part, the embarrassment you actually feel, if you do make mistakes, is not going to be as bad as the embarrassment you feel in your mind, right? The embarrassment you're thinking about and you're picturing and you're imagining. It's really in that anticipation that we see this fear of embarrassment have a negative impact on your game. Because one of the main things that's going to happen when you do experience this fear of embarrassment when you're playing is you will find yourself holding yourself back during games. This may even happen during practice. Now, the reason that you're going to hold yourself back is due to the fact that if you hold yourself back, it can feel safe. You know what I mean? It can feel like you don't have to go out there, put yourself out there, take these risks. It's safe. And in that safety, you feel like I'm not going to embarrass myself. But then here's a frustrating cycle that starts to form. You have this fear of embarrassment, and so you hold yourself back, or you find yourself holding yourself back during games. And so you might not be as embarrassed because of the mistakes you made, but equally you're going to be frustrated and maybe even a little embarrassed with how timid you played at the end of the game. So we know it's incredibly important to start managing this fear of embarrassment. And so this strategy that we're going to go over has two different parts. Part number one is you want to work on learning how to stop focusing on your fear. Whenever I'm working with an athlete in one-on-one coaching, and by the way, if you are interested in learning more about one-on-one mental performance coaching, I've put a link to that in the description below, so you can go ahead and click on that to learn more. But whenever I'm working with an athlete in one-on-one coaching, if we talk about the fear of failure, if we talk about performance anxiety, if we talk about any kind of thoughts that are limiting performance, a lot of times it has to do with focus. You are focusing on that fear. You are focusing on what might happen. Now, I want you to just imagine that going into a game, the only thing that you can picture is you making mistakes. How confident do you think you're going to feel? Probably not too confident, because all your mind is thinking about and all you can picture are mistakes, mistakes, mistakes. So naturally you're going to think, well, I don't want to make mistakes. What can I do to avoid those mistakes? But that question, what can I do to avoid mistakes, is not asked in a productive way. It's asked in a fearful way. And then we start to see this fear of embarrassment and this timid play follow. So first, what you need to do is stop focusing on your fear. But we also know that fear is very powerful, right? It's very real. It's there. So how can you stop focusing on that? Well, to stop focusing on something, you need something else to focus on. It's very difficult for you to just tell yourself, don't think about that, don't focus on that. We just need to substitute attention for something else. Now, that something else is going to be anything that's taking place in the moment, anything that's part of your game, and honestly, anything that's going to help you play your best. Because an interesting thing about the fear of embarrassment is when you are afraid of making mistakes because you don't want to be embarrassed, you're focusing on, okay, I don't want to make those mistakes. But what would happen if you actually focused on the things that will give you the best chance to not make those mistakes? All of a sudden, you start to decrease the chances of you making mistakes and embarrassing yourself. But what's really cool is that the more you focus on those things that will help you play better, you're focusing more in the present moment. So you're also taking your attention off of that fear and off of the fear of embarrassment specifically. So, something that you can set for yourself are performance objectives or process goals. What these are pieces of, the piece of the process of your game that are very simple, but are 100% controllable. A very, very simple example would be a baseball player focusing on watching the ball all the way to their bat, or a basketball player focusing on moving without the ball, right? Off-ball movement on offense. You might say a soccer player could have the goal of giving full effort out there on the pitch. The idea is setting these objectives for yourself that you can make sure happen, because we know that if you focus on that, you aren't focusing so much on your fear. And then the second part of this strategy to overcome this fear of embarrassment is you just need to work on building your self-belief. When you are afraid of embarrassment, we know that fear of embarrassment is there because you don't want to make mistakes. And the reason that you're thinking about not making mistakes is because you doubt yourself. You don't fully believe that you can go out there and succeed. If every fiber of your being thought, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to play great today, do you really feel like you would have any fear of embarrassment? Probably not, because you know that I'm going to play well and you have that belief that you're going to play well. So if we can get you to have more confidence, more trust, more belief in yourself, naturally that fear of embarrassment is going to go away. So there are a few different exercises that you can use to begin building this self-belief. But in all honesty, the first place you want to look is what kind of thoughts am I having before a game? What kind of thoughts am I having during a game? And what kind of thoughts am I having after a game? Before a game, if your thoughts are, once more centered on that fear, centered on what might happen, we know that's going to increase that fear of embarrassment, and it's also going to increase self-doubt. Because you're thinking, how am I going to play? I hope I play well today. Am I going to do my best? So right there, you need to change the way you're thinking. And then during the game, an example I can actually give is from a basketball player I was just talking to the other day, and he was saying that during the game, when he feels like the ball is going to come to him, he often thinks, I hope I make this shot. I hope I don't miss. We worked on substituting those for more positive thoughts like, I'm going to make this basket. This is my time. I'm going to make this shot. Right? Thoughts that are just more helpful and productive in that moment. And then after games, the reason that we want to also pay attention to how we're thinking after games is you want to make sure that you are giving yourself reasons to feel confident going forward. If you're not playing very well right now, I know it's easy to start doubting yourself and beat yourself up over those mistakes, but it's critical that even on the games when you're not playing your best, you focus on some things you did well to start feeding your confidence and to reduce that self-doubt. But of course, you still want to look at the mistakes you made in a way to improve, but exactly in that way, in a way to improve, not as a way to beat yourself up and be too critical of yourself. So the best tip that I can give you for beginning to build your confidence right now, that's going to help with this fear of embarrassment, is just really begin paying attention to the thoughts that you're having. Now, this is known as your self-talk. So if you want to learn more about what self-talk is and how you can start really taking control of your self-talk as an athlete, I've linked a video series that I've made that goes into detail on what self-talk is and shows you exactly how you can start having more positive and productive self-talk as an athlete. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.